Showing up can be hard, but when we have people who show up, we can see ourselves in them. I've been wanting to write this book for years, and I couldn't do it. They say that writing a book is like having a baby. I say it's way harder, and I've had 4 natural babies. So I had this idea for a book, and it had been in my heart for years. I always wanted to write a book about my experiences and how much I learned from everything that I went through. And in my head, I had convinced myself that my story was about finding forgiveness and healing a relationship with my dad. Now, and the book was going to be called Whatever Happened to Daddy's Little Girl. And at the time, my thoughts on this book was about when you don't have that stereotypical movie style father-daughter relationship, you start feeling like there's something wrong with you. Why not me? And you feel flawed and cheated, and why not me, damn it? And I remember as a kid, we watched a movie together as a family. It was called Father of the Bride, and I loved that movie. Like, it was my favorite movie, and I begged my dad, can we buy this movie? And my dad kind of laughed it off and said, yeah, I'll get it for you when you get married. And I remember, it's just everything I wanted in our relationship, and I was blind to anything but that want. And I remember on my wedding day, I still had these hopes, like in the movies, that movie would come through somehow, and it never did. So, but my whole thing with that book was about finding healing in the relationship with your father. I started in a author mentorship program, and it's basically a community of authors that comes together and they help you write your book. And I say help in like you have a community to share with, and it makes you accountable, and you show up and you have to follow through because there's people who are not as far in the process as you. And if you don't follow through, you feel pretty crappy and a terrible example saying, yeah, you can do it, but you're not doing it. So it's pretty lame that way. But it's a great encourager. So through this group, they talk a lot about the fear of rejection. And the facilitator of this group, her name is Melanie, and she is a transformational practitioner, or I can't remember her title, but she practiced therapy and she does some hypnotherapy and things like that. So she had recorded a session to eliminate your fear of being seen, right? Your fear of being rejected. And that's something that's always come up, and I find myself not wanting to do certain things because I don't want to be seen. I don't like being in the spotlight. I just, every part of me wants to, collapse and go hide and, go to my little bubble where I feel safe. But in writing a book and sharing your story, you can't help anyone if you don't talk and you don't tell people your story. So this book had gotten to be so important to me, and I was struggling to write it. I was struggling again. I mean, I had already burned my manuscript twice, and my last hope was this group, this community, and I had to get it. So I thought, you know what, whatever, I'm going to try this. And it was an incredibly eye-opening experience. This book, Living with Dirty Glasses, was never supposed to be living with dirty glasses. But what I realized, she takes you down into visualization. It starts with things like imagine you're tasting a lemon and then your mouth waters, and just pointing out how our minds work. And so she talks you through, and there's a point where she tells you, think of a time where you felt really hurt as a child. Don't force it, just let it come. Something will come to you. And right away I thought, okay, it'll be something about my dad. I'm already prepping myself. But then I am like blown away, because the image that comes through wasn't my dad at all. It had nothing to do with my dad. The image that came up was my mom. When she was in the hospital bed, I was maybe 7 years old. And it was the image of her with tubes all in her, and she was tied to the bed. She had just tried to commit suicide because she couldn't stand living in the abusive relationship that had become her marriage. And that moment just rocked me to my core, and all of a sudden I was overwhelmed with just tears and like a releasing. At that time, I never cried. Like, when I saw her, I never cried. That night I never cried. It just kind of shocked me, but it just stayed with me all those years. And it was like I was finally releasing all that energy. I was crying for that little girl, and there's points where Melanie guides you into, what would you say to that little girl and what would you do for that little girl? And I am just like a hot mess, just bawling my face off. And it was such an eye-opening experience. But I caution anyone that's doing that. I did that as a recording, but thankfully I have an uncle who studies hypnotherapy in depth, because after, I don't know whether I didn't do it right or I was interrupted, I can't remember now, but after I was having the flashbacks again, and I was sobbing all the time, like over nothing, and it was like this memory had been dislodged, but now I didn't know what to do with it. And then I suddenly was feeling angry again, and all these emotions that I didn't know what to do with. And so I called my uncle and I asked him, like, hey, what's going on and how do I stop this? How do I feel normal again? And he explained to me about talking down the subconscious and telling them that you're reminding it that you're safe, and that you've let this go, and things like that. I also read a great book, The Body Keeps a Score, and that helped me kind of get over that. But my point is, it changed the whole structure and purpose of my book. I realized I couldn't tell the story of the relationship with my dad without telling a bit of my mom's story, and ultimately my story. So what became a father-daughter relationship became a story about a family struggling with mental health and trying to navigate being new immigrants and isolated, and a father battling with bipolar depression, and taking it out on his family and stuff. Much love to my parents. They did the best they could. I harbor no ill feelings, and I just illustrate in my book about the experiences, not to put down or to degrade. It's more just to share what that experience was, and to let people know that they're not alone. right? Like, I went for so many years believing that it was just me, and what I've heard again and again since my book has come out is how much people can relate to my story. And it breaks my heart, but at the same time, for the first time, I don't feel so alone. I don't feel like it has to be something we don't talk about, because we don't talk about these things. It's hard to talk about these things. And so in exploring that story, it changed the whole course and purpose of the book, from a father and daughter relationship to how do I clean the perspective of my life and learn to heal my own wounds, but also my relationships, and to understand them in a different way, one that empowers me and doesn't hurt me anymore, because I didn't realize why I was having so much anxiety. I didn't realize why I was experiencing depression. I didn't realize why I kept seeing flashes of my life, and that would hit me at random moments, and I could literally feel the feelings all over again. It was so difficult to navigate that, and I didn't know why it was happening at all. Despite all the help that I was getting, therapists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, social workers upon social workers, counselors, medications, like hospitalization for almost 2 years, art therapy, like physical therapy, like occupational therapy. There was so many different therapies, and nothing was helping me. Even when I finally left hospital, and I only left hospital because I stopped trying to kill myself, and it was a long stretch, and eventually it just became permanent because I found a different way to live my life. But it's not because of my time in the hospital. If anything, it exacerbated my feelings of feeling trapped and unsure what to do with myself, and ultimately feeling out of body, because they put me on these medications and I didn't know what was happening to my body. I didn't know who I was, and they would just elevate my moods, and then I drop, and I was just experiencing so many side effects. And I guess excuse me, that's my cue that I've gone on talking far too long. But my point is, therapies are amazing tools, but they can't be your only tool. And, I also realize that a lot of people don't have access, time, money, or even a good connection or experience with professional help. For the people who go on and say, therapy changed my life, I celebrate them. But that's not the case for everyone. That's like the lucky few. And it drives me crazy when people say the only way you can heal this is through therapy. I healed a lot of my own traumas. I was a wreck, a complete wreck. I had completely given up on my life. I was doing all sorts of terrible things to myself, to my family. But therapy didn't save me. I had to save myself. Did it help me in some ways? I'm sure to some degree it helped me become more self-aware, to learn to talk about what I needed to talk about. But it always made me feel worse after. So I hope in sharing my story that you find some tools to be your own therapist, your own best friend, to be your own cheerleader, and see the brightness that you have inside of you already. There is so much healing and beauty that we can't see because we're so stuck in the pain. We're so stuck in the loop. Friend, I just want you to start where you're at. Go slow and have love for yourself. If you totally disagree with me and hate what I'm saying, drop it in the chat. Let me know. If you agree that maybe there's other ways, what's helped you through a difficult time? Let me know. It's here! It's here, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here! Living with Dirty Glasses is available in print. Check it out.